There was once an American president who nearly died from blood loss on the battlefield, who met Napoleon Bonaparte during one of the most chaotic periods in French history, who warned all of Europe not to interfere in the Americas, yet spent his final years buried in debt and almost forgotten. That man was James Monroe, the fifth President of the United States and one of the last surviving members of the generation that created America. James Monroe was born on April 28, 1758, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, into a prosperous farming family that made its living through agriculture and woodworking. His father, Spence Monroe, was a strict, hard-working man who was highly respected in the community, while his mother, Elizabeth Jones Monroe, came from an educated family with a respected social standing. From an early age, Monroe grew up among the vast fields of Virginia, where life was peaceful, yet demanding and disciplined. As the eldest son in the family, he quickly learned the values of responsibility, self-reliance, and determination, developing the strong character and resilience that would later define his leadership. Monroe was a quiet and reserved boy, but he had a strong desire to learn. He enjoyed reading books about history and law, and he was often curious about how nations were governed and how governments operated. However, Monroe's childhood was not entirely happy. While still a teenager, he lost both his mother and his father. These painful losses forced him to mature much earlier than most people his age. He became quiet, reserved, and less expressive with his emotions. But beneath his calm exterior was an exceptionally strong will and determination. As tensions between the American colonies and the British government continued to grow, Monroe often listened to adults discussing injustice, burdensome taxes, and the dream of independence. Those conversations left a deep impression on the young Monroe and helped ignite a strong sense of patriotism within him. Over time, these early influences would shape his devotion to the cause of American freedom and independence. Monroe first attended Campbelltown Academy and later enrolled at the College of William and Mary, one of the most prestigious institutions in America at the time. He excelled in his studies, particularly in history, philosophy, and political science. These subjects broadened his understanding of government, leadership, and the principles that would later shape his public career. At first, Monroe only hoped to become a lawyer or serve his country through his knowledge and education. He envisioned a future devoted to learning, public service, and the pursuit of justice. However, he had no idea that history was about to draw him into a conflict that would completely change the course of his life. In 1775, the American Revolution erupted. At the time, Monroe was only about 17 years old. Yet he made the courageous decision to leave his studies and join the colonial army in the fight against British forces. He believed that the freedom of his country was far more important than his own personal future. This choice marked a turning point in his life and set him on a path that would eventually shape both his character and the future of the young nation. Monroe joined the Army under the command of George Washington. During the early years of the war, the American forces suffered from severe shortages of nearly everything: food, clothing, weapons, and medical supplies. Like many other soldiers, Monroe endured freezing temperatures, hunger, and extremely harsh living conditions. Despite these hardships, he remained committed to the cause of independence and continued to serve with determination and courage. During the Battle of Trenton in 1776, Monroe led a group of soldiers in an assault against the Hessian troops hired by the British. Amid a hail of gunfire, he was struck by a musket ball that pierced his shoulder and severed an artery, causing severe blood loss. Monroe collapsed on the battlefield and nearly died from his wounds. Had a doctor not acted quickly to clamp the damaged artery, James Monroe might never have survived to become President of the United States. That wound remained with him for the rest of his life and often caused pain whenever the weather turned cold. Many historians believe that this near-death experience played a significant role in shaping Monroe's character, making him more calm, resilient, and determined in the political challenges he would face later in life. Unlike many politicians who only issued orders from behind the lines, Monroe was one of the few American presidents who had personally carried a weapon and fought on the battlefield. He had truly shed blood for his country's independence. This distinguished him from many of his contemporaries and earned him the deep respect of the American people, who viewed him not merely as a statesman, but as a genuine hero of the Revolution. After the war, Monroe returned to his studies, but life was extremely difficult. His family was no longer as prosperous as it had once been, as the war had caused severe economic hardship. For a time, Monroe struggled financially and was nearly unable to afford continuing his college education. To support himself, he had to study law while also finding ways to earn a living. Despite these challenges, he remained determined to pursue his education and build a future through hard work and perseverance. There were times when Monroe had no idea what the future held for him or which path his life would take. Yet it was during those years of poverty and hardship that he gained a deep understanding of the struggles faced by ordinary people. Those experiences strengthened his determination to help build a more stable, prosperous, and united nation. Over time, the challenges he endured would become some of the most valuable lessons of his life. During that difficult period, Monroe met Thomas Jefferson, the man who would later become his mentor and the greatest influence on his political life. Jefferson regarded Monroe almost as his own protege and took a special interest in guiding him. He taught Monroe about law, diplomacy, and the principles of building a government that serves the people. From Jefferson, Monroe learned that the purpose of government is to protect liberty, not to become an instrument of oppression. This lesson became one of the foundations of Monroe's political philosophy and would guide him throughout his public career. Thanks to his intelligence and strong public speaking skills, Monroe quickly entered the world of politics. Over the years, he held several important positions, including member of the United States Congress, U.S. Senator, Governor of Virginia, and American Ambassador to France. However, Monroe's political career was not always smooth. There were periods when he faced sharp criticism from his opponents, who viewed him as too cautious, too soft, and lacking decisiveness in matters of diplomacy. Despite these challenges, Monroe remained committed to public service and continued to build a reputation as a dedicated and capable statesman. At one point, Monroe was recalled to the United States because of political disagreements, an experience that left him deeply disappointed and feeling betrayed. For many people, such a setback might have marked the end of a political career. However, Monroe refused to give up. Rather than disappearing from public life, he quietly rebuilt his reputation and steadily worked to prove his abilities. Through patience, perseverance, and dedication, Monroe gradually regained the trust of influential leaders and continued his rise in American politics. During his time as ambassador to France, Monroe witnessed firsthand the turmoil and instability that followed the French Revolution. He met Napoleon Bonaparte and learned valuable lessons about military power, diplomacy, and the dangers of unchecked authority. His years in Europe gave him a broader understanding of international politics and convinced him that the United States should avoid becoming entangled in the endless wars between competing empires. These experiences would later play a major role in shaping Monroe's views on foreign policy and America's place in the world. Monroe and his wife also helped rescue Adrienne de Lafayette from the threat of execution by guillotine during the turbulent years following the French Revolution. Adrienne was the wife of Marquis de Lafayette, one of the most celebrated heroes of both the American and French causes of liberty. This act of kindness and loyalty earned Monroe the respect and admiration of many people in France. It also revealed an important side of his character. He was not merely a politician or diplomat, but a man who deeply valued friendship, loyalty, and personal honor. One of Monroe's greatest diplomatic achievements was his role in the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. At the time, under the administration of Thomas Jefferson, the United States sought to purchase the city of New Orleans from France in order to secure control of the vital trade route along the Mississippi River. Unexpectedly, however, Napoleon Bonaparte offered to sell not just New Orleans, but the entire Louisiana Purchase territory for approximately $15 million. Monroe played an important role in the negotiations that made the agreement possible. The purchase nearly doubled the size of the United States and opened the door for westward expansion. It became one of the most significant land deals in history and helped transform the young nation into a continental power. During the War of 1812, Monroe served first as Secretary of State and later simultaneously as Secretary of War, when British forces advanced into Washington and set fire to many important government buildings. Monroe personally rode on horseback to scout enemy positions and assess the situation firsthand. Some people feared that he might be captured or even shot and killed, but Monroe insisted on seeing the battlefield with his own eyes. His actions earned the deep admiration of many soldiers because he was not the kind of leader who simply sat in an office issuing orders. Instead, he was willing to face danger himself and share in the risks of those he led. This courage further strengthened his reputation as both a statesman and a man of action. In 1817, James Monroe became the 5th President of the United States. He is often remembered as the last president of the founding generation because he was the final U.S. president who had personally fought in the American Revolutionary War against Britain. At the time, the nation was still recovering from war and remained divided in many ways. Monroe worked to unite the American people, strengthen the economy, and encourage westward expansion through his leadership. He sought to bring stability and national confidence to the young republic during a critical period in its history. During a visit to the city of Boston, Monroe received an exceptionally warm welcome from the public. People from all walks of life came out to greet him, reflecting a growing sense of national unity and optimism. Newspapers of the time referred to this period as the era of good feelings. The phrase eventually became closely associated with Monroe's entire presidency because the United States was experiencing a period of relative stability, economic growth, and increasing national pride. Although political disagreements still existed beneath the surface, many Americans felt that the nation was becoming more united than ever before. As a result, Monroe came to symbolize a time of optimism, cooperation, and confidence in the future of the young republic. However, the greatest legacy of Monroe's political career was the Monroe Doctrine of 1823. In the early 1820s, many nations in Latin America rose up and won independence from European empires such as Spain and Portugal. Americans feared that the European powers might attempt to reclaim these territories and, in doing so, pose a direct threat to the security of the United States. Faced with this situation, Monroe and his talented Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, held numerous private meetings to discuss strategy. At first, Britain wanted the United States to join with them in warning European nations not to interfere in the Western Hemisphere. However, Adams strongly opposed the idea. He believed that the United States should speak with its own independent voice rather than stand under Britain's shadow. In his view, America needed to establish itself as a sovereign power capable of defending its interests without relying on another nation to lead the way. After months of discussion and careful planning, Monroe presented the Monroe Doctrine to the United States Congress in 1823. The policy declared that European nations would no longer be permitted to establish new colonies or interfere in the affairs of independent countries in the Americas. At the same time, the United States pledged to avoid involvement in Europe's internal conflicts and wars. Although the American military was not yet a major world power, the declaration attracted international attention because it demonstrated that the United States was becoming a more confident and ambitious nation on the world stage. Over time, the Monroe Doctrine became a cornerstone of American foreign policy for generations and is widely regarded as one of the greatest legacies of James Monroe. It helped define the relationship between the United States, Europe, and the nations of the Western Hemisphere for more than a century, leaving a lasting impact on world affairs. Beyond his political career, Monroe was also a devoted family man. He married Elizabeth Courtwright Monroe, an intelligent and elegant woman who became one of the most admired first ladies of her era. While living in Europe, Elizabeth earned the nickname the Elegant Lady of America because of her grace, sophistication, and refined manner. Her presence helped enhance the image of the young United States abroad and won admiration from many European leaders and diplomats. Despite the demands of public service and national affairs, Monroe always tried to care for his family and maintain a simple, modest way of life. He believed that strong family values, personal integrity, and public duty should go hand in hand, and he carried those principles throughout his life. What moves many people is that Monroe did not live a wealthy life in his final years. During that era, American government officials were often expected to pay many travel, diplomatic, and public service expenses out of their own pockets. Monroe spent a large portion of his personal fortune serving the government, but he was never fully reimbursed for those expenses. As a result, after leaving the White House in 1825, he found himself burdened with debt and was forced to sell land and other property to pay what he owed. This situation saddened many Americans who felt it was unfair that a man who had devoted so much of his life to the service of his country should face financial hardship in old age. His struggles became a reminder that public service often demanded great personal sacrifice, even from a former president of the United States. After his beloved wife passed away, Monroe became even more lonely. In his final years, he moved to New York City to live with his daughter. For a time, he lived a quiet and largely private life. Many younger Americans had begun to forget him, even though he had once been one of the key figures who helped shape the nation. The man who had fought for independence, negotiated major diplomatic agreements, served as president, and established the Monroe Doctrine now spent his remaining years far from the center of public attention. Yet, despite the fading public recognition, Monroe remained proud of his service to the United States. His life stood as a testament to dedication, sacrifice, and a lifelong commitment to the country he had helped build. On July 4, 1831, James Monroe died at the age of 73. What made his passing especially remarkable was that he died on Independence Day, the national holiday of the United States. He became the third former U.S. president to die on July 4th, following Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, who had both died on the same date 5 years earlier in 1826, and John Adams, who had both died on the same date 5 years earlier in 1826. Many Americans at the time viewed this as a strange and symbolic coincidence. It seemed as though the men who had helped create and shape the United States were forever connected to the nation's birthday. Monroe's death marked the passing of one of the last major figures of the Revolutionary generation. His life had spanned the struggle for independence, the founding of the Republic, its expansion across the continent, and its emergence as a confident nation on the world stage. Years later, Monroe's remains were returned to the state of Virginia and laid to rest in a remarkable cast-iron Gothic-style mausoleum. The structure became one of the most famous tombs in America because of its unique and elaborate design. Local residents nicknamed it the birdcage because its tall iron framework and intricate Gothic architecture resembled an enormous birdcage. The unusual monument stood out from traditional burial sites and became a well-known landmark. Today, Monroe's tomb remains a symbol of respect for one of the nation's founding leaders. Its distinctive appearance continues to attract visitors and serves as a reminder of the lasting legacy of a man who helped shape the early United States. From an orphaned young man who left school to take up arms in the fight for freedom, James Monroe rose to become one of the key figures who shaped America's place in the world. Though he spent his final years in loneliness and burdened by debt, the legacy he left behind has endured for centuries. Even today, the name James Monroe is remembered as one of the last surviving members of the generation that created the United States of America.